this right here. This a real Oscar type beat. Yeah. She keeps staring at my tassels cause she like the way they blink. Israelite, little baby, don't give a damn what you think. Just like Solomon, you better listen when I preach. And if you ever reach, I'll guarantee I'm finna teach. Facts. Don't pop no perks, but I'll be popping prophecy. If you don't keep the law, then you can't get next to me. Future ruler, baby, yeah, that's my destiny. And I'ma let them hate while the Lord keep blessing me. Facts. Don't pop no perks, but I'll be popping prophecy. If you don't keep the law, then you can't get next to me. Future ruler, baby, yeah, that's my destiny. And I'ma let them hate while the Lord keep blessing me. And I don't fuck with niggas who don't practice what they preach. Can't do it. Most these niggas fake, man, they really just a leech. And if I ever speak, no, I gotta keep it brief. Wisdom come with time, you don't always gotta speak. Believe that. Don't test this doctrine, boy, you know you can't defeat. Nope. Why you in the kitchen if you can never take the heat? If you want the smoke, you can meet me in the street. Get the right to stand bold while the wicked gon' retreat. If you got some questions, I got the answers that you see. And if I see a Christian like for extra, I'ma tweet. You don't do the work cause yourself, you really weak. She be quoting verses, but lil' mama still a freak. She keep staring at my tassels cause she like the way they blink. Israelite, little baby, don't give a damn what you think. Just like Solomon, you better listen when I preach. And if you ever reach, I'll guarantee I'm finna teach. Don't pop no perks, but I'll be popping prophecy. If you don't keep the law, then you can't get next to me. Future ruler, baby, yeah, that's my destiny. We up next. And I'ma let them hate while the Lord keep blessing me. Don't pop no perks, but I'll be popping prophecy. If you don't keep the law, then you can't get next to me. Future ruler, baby, yeah, that's my destiny. We up next. And I'ma let them hate while the Lord keep blessing me.
All right. Shalom. Mic check. Yakanan, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. All right. So shalom, everybody. Shalom. It's Friday, man. We got Friday night class. Tonight, we got 2 lessons that's going on. We got the brother soldier Yakanan here, man. He's about to go over a powerful lesson here over Freemasonry. And then later tonight, we're going to have one of our officers, Zachariah, bring an edifying lesson going over current events. So go ahead, Yakanan. Hey, take it away, man. Lord willing, the lesson is powerful, man. So I want to start by giving all glory, honor, and praises to the Most High God, Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shah. And that's in the name of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Go ahead, Yakanan, take it away.
Hey, shalom, everybody. This is Yakanan. I'm a soldier in Space City. So I got a powerful lesson for y'all today, man. I really want to get right into it, but I'll be remiss to say that the world is getting crazy right now, right? We're seeing wicked get exposed in various forms. We see what's going on with the nation of Israel and the wickedness that they've been committing against Palestinians, and how that is matriculated into various wars in the Middle East involving the United States. We see what's going on with children being abused with the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. And I think it's important that we address the spiritual side of what's going on. And a lot of it is tied to these secret societies and occult practices. It's been confirmed. If you look at the Epstein emails, you'll see that he was trying to cultivate his own secret society, and they all stem from the same thing. It's really that if you are not operating under a biblical standpoint, and if your wisdom and your knowledge and your theology and your spiritual practice, if it's not coming from the Bible, if it's not keeping the commandments of God, it's coming from the left hand. You're doing the left. Into spirituality, into crystals, and into the universe and things like that, right? Well, that's not an asylum. That doesn't just happen on the spiritual side, right? Even your most successful politicians, attorneys, entertainers, a lot of them are into this wickedness that we call Freemasonry. So let's get started. So I got to start by just marveling at how amazing the Most High is, and how this story is unfolding. It's unfolding in a way that I honestly could never imagine. It seems like every so often he gives us these downloads of information about what's going on within ourselves, about what's going on in the world from a geopolitical standpoint. And that's just a sign of the end of the times, man. It's really a blessing to be alive and to see things unfold how they unfold. So knowledge is increasing right now, and we see that was foretold in the prophets by the prophet Daniel. In Daniel 12:14, he said, "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the word and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." All right, we see the world is in a frenzy. It is in a frenzy. People's spirits are being converted a lot of the times in a negative space. I'm starting to realize that if you're not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments of the Bible, then you're going to be ass out, basically. You know, your life is going to get really tough, and especially as the world is coming to an end, your spirit it's going to crumble. It's going to be even harder for you to operate in the current world that we're in. So the framework for the study, of course, we're using the Bible, right? We can prove everything as it relates to spirituality, and if a spiritual practice is good or bad based on the Bible. It's not ironic, but it is interesting how these occultic practices like Freemasonry, they use the Bible as their source of knowledge, and everything else kind of stems off of that. They will take stories from the Bible and repurpose them. They'll take certain principles from the Bible and repurpose them into something negative, right? Really, I implore you all to look up what people consider anti-Masons, right? And some of the powerful and prominent anti-Masons, if you will, is a guy named William Schneblin. I believe that's how you pronounce his name, and the pastor named David Carrico. They have lectures online that I think are really powerful, and I've been able to verify and fact check things they said, and that kind of started me on my journey to kind of understanding and learning more about Freemasonry, right? And we're using Masonic text, right? A lot of what we're going to discuss tonight, it comes straight out of their manuscripts, their manuals. We're not pulling this out of thin air, right? I believe it's called something about Duncan something. You can look this up, and it lists and it shows, it illustrates the rites and the rituals of Freemasonry. We're gonna go to various Masonic official websites like the ScottishRite.org, and we're gonna examine some of the most prominent Freemason scholars, right, dating all the way back to the 1700s, late 1700s, I believe, or early 1800s. And we're going to see what they wrote about Freemasonry. We're going to see what it is they believe in, and it's coming straight from the horse's mouth, if you will. All right. So what is Freemasonry? Webster's gives a very lackluster description and depiction and definition of what Freemasonry does, or what it is. I want to say that they do this intentionally, so you can, so they're not spelling it out for you. We're going to see how powerful Freemasons powerful people in the past, right? They've been Freemasons, okay, and they've been over our institutions, over our educational institutions. I don't doubt that they will go on to certain sources like Webster's or Oxford, or the Oxford Dictionary, and they will intentionally give vague descriptions of certain things, or they will mischaracterize certain things, like Freemasonry, like the definition of Freemasonry. So the definition that Webster's gives is the principles, institutions, or practices of Freemasons, called also Masonry. Okay, that really didn't teach us much, right? Okay, so but Schneblin, right? And I should have said this at the beginning. Okay, so Will Schneblin is an ex-Mason, and to his testimony, he was a very, very, very high-ranking Mason, and I believe that's true. He has pictures of him in various different orders. He has pictures of him in that regalia. But what I can deduce online is that a lot of currently practicing Masons despise this guy. So, but anyway, the definition that he gives is, it's the world's oldest secret fraternal organization, okay, a system of 3 ritual initiations or degrees based on medieval stonemason guilds, guarded by blood oaths and founded on the principles of the fatherhood of God and brotherhood of man. Masonry symbols is a blend of Old Testament symbols rooted in the building of King Solomon's temple in ancient mystery religions, right? And we see within this definition, he says that it's guarded by blood oaths and founded on the principles of the fatherhood of God, right? So a lot of their teachings, a lot of their rites, a lot of their practices are deduced from the Bible. Okay, so why is this lesson important? Okay, Ephesians 6:12 tells us, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. That's Ephesians 6:12. Daiwala, I'm seeing like different windows of me right now. Is it looking good on your end? Okay, I think we're good. It's probably just something I'm seeing. So why is it important? I can speak from a personal testimony. My grandfather, he was a Freemason. I never met him. He died before I was born, so I never got to pick his brain about what his experience was as a Mason, right? But the thing is, he was a pastor, which seems kind of ironic, but it's not. A lot of pastors are Freemasons. I would assume a high percentage of pastors today, really, I'll speak for us in the Black community. A lot of our church leaders are Masons, or are in some type of occultic order, like the Odd Fellows or something like that, right? Some prominent Black Masons, are Shaquille O'Neal. We see him showing off his Masonic ring. Al Sharpton, a very influential Christian, and a lot of our people are still in Christianity and have been influenced by what Sharpton has had to say about the country, about the church, about politics. He's highly influential in our community. Reverend Jesse Jackson, who just passed, was a Mason. And we have Thurgood Marshall, who's famous for ruling on the Brown versus the Board of Education, ruling that our institutions were separate but not equal. So this is interesting, and I titled this slide "Dispelling Myths," right? Because I have a friend. He's an older brother. And actually, I have two people that I know who are Masons. And I remember hearing this years ago and not necessarily feeling a certain way about it because I know how pervasive Freemasonry is in the Black community. And we'll get into the distinctions between what are considered Black Masons and white Masons, right? But I know that in the Black community, and especially of our affluent brothers and sisters who are well-to-do and well-off, they get into fraternal organizations like fraternities, right? And definitely they are into other types of organizations like Freemasonry. But anyway, these brothers were telling me that that what happens, the rumors that you've heard about the wickedness that happens in Freemasonry, that's only on the white side, right? Black people, we don't get down like that. They were making it seem like Black Masonry and white Masonry, which are not real terms, but I'm just using that using those terms as a way to express to you that there is a distinction, right, between Black Masons and white Masons. Okay, but they come from the same tree. They descend from they have grown from the same spiritual root, and we're going to get into that. So some of you may have heard of Prince Hall Freemasonry, right? So Prince Hall, he was born in 1735 or 1738. You know, they didn't track our birth dates back then. You know, we didn't do that as free Black people, and they damn sure didn't do that if you were in slavery, right? Died in December 7, 1807. Excuse me. Was initiated into Lodge number 441 of the Grand Lodge of Ireland on March 6th, 1775. Okay, so we see that Prince Hall, he was initiated by white Freemasons, right? So his early days as a Mason, his early studies, what he was building his foundational knowledge of Freemasonry on, what was based off of so-called white Freemasons. There's not a distinction there, right? So Hall then applied to the Grand Lodge of England for a more complete warrant or charter, right? So he tried to get a charter from the Grand Lodge of England. And this happened because this was right around the time of the American Revolution, right? So after he was initiated in 1775, I believe they were English soldiers that were presiding over this Grand Lodge of Ireland, and they left. They left the country because of the revolution, right? So their Grand Lodge, the Grand Lodge of Ireland, was defunct, at least in America. So then he later applied for a charter so he can have his own Grand Lodge, his own lodge, and I believe he received it via the Grand Lodge of England, right? So it says this request was granted on December 29th, 1784, when H.R.H., the Duke of Cumberland, okay, so somebody in the royal body, in the monarchy of England, approved of this charter. I think that's interesting because, like I've said, we know that there are affluent people that participate and that join Freemasonry, right? That get initiated into Freemasonry, and I think a lot of them tie back to or plainly saying a lot of these people are of aristocracy, you know, or of quote unquote royalty, right? So they issued a charter for the African Lodge number 1, as later named African Lodge number 459. I believe that happened after Prince Hall's death. Okay, so Prince Hall and Scottish Rite Masons. On December 7, 2022, the Scottish Rite Masons and the Prince Hall affiliated Masons came together to sign a statement of unity, right? Since the end of the 20th century, these two groups had been um, commingling with one another, participating in one another's lodges. Their rights are very similar, right? So they have been interacting with each other for decades before this, but this was the official signing to show that these two parties, the Scottish Rite and the Prince Hall affiliated Masons, are one, right? In Scottish Rite, we'll go over the distinctions between what a Scottish Rite Mason is and a York Rite Mason is. They're basically both are two of the official Masonic bodies in America, and they are made official by Grand Lodges, and I believe those lodges are in Europe, right? So they commissioned the Scottish Rite Masons and the York Rite Masons. The York Rite Masons, I believe, they only have the first through ninth degrees. So when you hear somebody's a third degree Mason, that's what it's referring to. It's referring to the matriculation that you go through when you are in Freemasonry. Like the higher up you get, the more degrees you get. When you have the 33rd degree Masons, which is probably a term that a lot of us have heard, that is somebody that has gone through the Scottish Rite, okay? And then you can branch off to various other rites within Freemasonry. But and typically most people don't even get past that. They start in what is called a Blue Lodge. And I believe that only comprises of the first three degrees of Freemasonry. The way that they have it organized and their designations are somewhat tricky, but it's probably something you just need to be you need to familiarize yourself with, and it's not as confusing as it might apparently seem. So much for people saying that Black Masons and White Masons are two distinct bodies. We see here in this picture, I believe this is a class of 2019. I'm not sure what ranking the gentlemen in this picture are, but we have Black Masons side by side, hand in hand with White Masons, and we're going to see how there's hardly any distinction between the two. Okay, so Prince Hall and Scottish Rite Masons. In April 2001, Grand Commander Siegfried Kleinknecht presented the revised Pike rituals to representatives of the Prince Hall Rite bodies. And we'll talk about more about Pike later. So we see that their rites are the same. Siegfried Kleinknecht, he is a Scottish Rite Mason. He's the Grand Commander. He's one of the most high-ranking, if not the highest-ranking, Scottish Rite Mason, and he presented a revision of rituals, right? So he said, "Hey guys, I know we've been doing things the old way. We just got a download of these new rituals. Let me show you how the rituals are done. The new rituals are done, and I got to introduce that to the Black Masons." So he's trying to keep them updated on ritual knowledge, right? So their spiritual basis is the same. Okay, Prince Hall and Scottish Rite Masons continue. So Thornton A. Jackson was presented with the Southern jurisdiction's rituals by Albert Pike. Now, the Southern jurisdiction of Scottish Rite Masons, that is the most pervasive Masonic body. And the bodies are broken down by state. So each state will have a Grand Lodge, right? And the the Southern jurisdiction of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, it comprises of more states than the Northern jurisdiction, right? It's more prevalent. It has more. The Southern jurisdiction has more members, and I would dare to say more influence. So the Grand Commander of the United States Council, 33rd degree, Southern jurisdiction, Prince Hall affiliation. So yeah, so Thornton A. Jackson was a Prince Hall Mason, was a so-called Black man, and Albert Pike, who is the guy, is the is the Freemason. He's the one that repopularized Freemasonry after the Civil War, right? Because, well, Freemasonry was under attack before the Civil War. There was somebody that threatened to expose Freemasonry, and he was killed. And that presumably he was killed by Masons, and that is what started a wave of what I mentioned earlier. The term is anti-Masons, and we saw more anti-Masonic literature coming out around that time. This was pre-Civil War. During the Civil War, of course, that took precedence, so people's attention was diverted from the issues of that they had with the Freemasons, and their focus was on the war. After the war, Albert Pike comes around and he reinvigorates Freemasonry, and it becomes even bigger, even internationally. Okay. Continuing to dispel the myth. So in 1813, there was a reorganization of Grand Lodges, and they did not recognize the African Lodge. This is why people perceive that there is a distinction today, right? This was in 1813. Okay, think about the racial views at that time, the race relations at that time were in a very disparate place. You know, I think this was around the time where the United States stopped importing slaves from Africa. So that just shows you the types of conversations that were being had as it pertains to Africans and so-called Black slaves. So there definitely was not unity between Black people and white people. So when they did this reshuffling of the Grand Lodges in 1813, that allowed them to reconsider different lodges, even in America, because these Grand Lodges, they presided in the UK, and they were like, no, you know, we're not going to permit Black Masons. We're not going to recognize them as an official body due to race relations at that time. Okay, so in 1850, Count de Saint Laurent, patron of the Prince Hall Scottish Rite, conferred the degrees of the Scottish Rite, including the 33rd and last degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, upon David Leary, a prominent Philadelphia Freemason. This was a Black Freemason, this is a Prince Hall Freemason, and he was conferred. I believe he was the first to receive the 33rd degree, which is the last degree of the Scottish Rite. So we see there's no distinction. We see that even as late as as early as 1850, a so-called Black Mason can be a part of a white Masonic body. Okay, so in 1945, Melvin M. Johnson sent a letter inviting the Prince Hall and Scottish Rite Masons to meet to discuss rituals. He was the sovereign. Okay, so Melvin M. Johnson, he was the sovereign Grand Commander of the Supreme Council 33rd degree. So we have the Grand Commander inviting Prince Hall Masons to discuss rituals in 1945. Okay, this snip from Wikipedia, it says Prince Hall Scottish Rite rituals primarily governed by the United Supreme Council (PHA) are based on the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite, the 4th through 33rd degree, and were refined through the early 20th century collaborations. Excuse me. They share similarities with mainstream Northern Masonic jurisdictions, right? And that's when I was talking about there's a distinction between the Southern Masonic Scottish Rite bodies and the Northern Scottish Rite bodies. So they said they share similar rituals, right? Utilizing both historical precedent and specific revised work. Okay, and I dare say that the distinction between the Northern Masonic jurisdiction and Southern jurisdiction, I dare to say that the distinction is very minimal. Is very minimal. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the history of Masonic orders, right? So a lot of us, the majority of us here are familiar with the story of Nimrod, right? So Masons consider Nimrod to be the first Freemason. Okay, when we look at Genesis 11:6-8, we see that the Bible says, "And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence, and from thence the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the cities." Right. So they were building a Tower of Babel, right? And this was multiple different nations coming together, and they were trying to be one. But we see throughout the Bible, God likes division. The Father likes division. He doesn't want us all to be the same, right? And it's interesting because the so-called powers that be, right, prominent Freemasons, prominent and powerful people that are into occultic practices, they have talked about a one world government or a new world government, and we see that they are borrowing language. And it's really not even so much that they're borrowing language. They're just tapping into who they were in the days of Nimrod, that spirit that was in the people that were building the Tower of Babel. It's in the people today that want to build and that want to establish a one world society, right? Then we fast forward a little bit in history to the Egyptian mysteries, okay? Osiris and Isis. What is it? Osiris, he was killed by his brother Set, right? And the 12 pieces. Isis went around Egypt to collect the pieces to collect the pieces of his body, except for his member, right? Except for his penis. And we'll talk about why that is important to Freemasons later. And that goes into the pyramids and then building the pyramids. We see a lot of that type of imagery within Freemason orders, right? Okay, so this is from the website Universal Co-Masonry. It says the universal sentiment of the Masons of the present day is to confer upon Solomon, king of Israel, the honor of being the first Grand Master, right? But the legend of the craft had long before. But the legend of the craft had long before, though there was a tradition of the temple extant, bestowed at least by implication that title upon Nimrod, the king of Babylon and Assyria. It had attributed the first organization of a fraternity of craftsmen to him, and saying that he gave a charge to the workmen whom he sent to assist the king of Nineveh in building his cities, right? So Nimrod is considered to be really the first Freemason. They tie back their ideologies or Masonic beliefs to Nimrod, right? Even though they would like to confer it upon King Solomon and give him the honor, they wouldn't give the honor to such a righteous man. They would give it to somebody wicked like Nimrod. Okay, so continuing with the ancient Masonic orders, then we get to King Solomon and Hiram, the widow's son, and we'll talk about Hiram and his prevalence and importance to Freemasonry, right? We have the Rite of Ulysses, and this is a Greek order. The Dionysian artificers, which artificers is just the word for builders. And then we have the Kabbalah and Gnosticism, and Kabbalah is a Jewish mystical system. And I'm glad that I remembered this. All of these rites are tied to one another, right? All these different orders, they are tied to one another, right? Like some of the gods, the Greek gods, they'll have a tie to like a spirit according to the Kabbalic tradition, right? They'll say, oh, this spirit was really this Greek spirit or this Greek god, you know. So all these orders, all these occultic orders are tied in with one another. Going into the medieval period, we have the Hashishim, excuse me. Yeah, the Hashishim. And this is considered the first modern cult or secret society. The word assassin comes from here. This is a Muslim order, right? Around the same time, we have the Knights Templar, is a Catholic order of knights, and they swapped information and rights with the Hashishim. And it's interesting that the Knights Templar, and we see that their symbol right here is the Knights Templar cross. This is actually considered, this is a Masonic body that you can matriculate into at a certain point. You can start out as a Prince Hall Freemason and end up being a Knights Templar. And this is considered to be the Christian branch of Freemasonry, but it's really not. They are known to take communion out of a human skull, right? So it's very, very, very far from what you would call Christian, okay? More medieval Masonic orders, we have the Stone Masons Guild. And so when you see the cathedrals in Europe, like the Cathedral Notre Dame, and when you see the gargoyles and these crazy looking sculptures on these Christian, right, buildings, they're supposed to be buildings of God, they have Masonic imagery on them, and that was done. And the cathedrals were built by the Stonemasons Guild. So the prominent cathedrals that you have in France and Europe, in England and Italy, they were built by a group called the Stonemasons Guild. And you have the Brothers of the Rosy Cross, which they're actually called Rosicrucians, right? So the first word, the first use of the word Mason in English, it involves the Rosicrucians. Okay, so early modern Masonic orders. So we have the admission of speculative Masons, right? So money stopped being given to the cathedral builders because this was around the time of the Protestant Reformation. So people stopped, the Catholic Church basically stopped getting over on the people, and people stopped paying the Catholic Church. I believe they're called indulgences. So you can get into heaven, basically. They stopped doing that. The money stopped flowing. So the Stonemasons Guild, they weren't getting the money to build these cathedrals anymore. So they said, how about we start recruiting wealthy individuals, and they won't be actual stonemasons, but they'll be speculative Masons. And what a speculative Mason will do is they'll work on not building a church or a cathedral. They're going to build themselves up, right? We're going to build them up through character, right? So we see the early iterations of what is considered modern Freemasonry. It's about, you know, character building. It's not about building actual structures, right? So early modern Masonic orders, we have the Mother Lodge, right? Starting in 1717. All modern lodges expand from this. So when Prince Hall was initiated by the Grand Lodge of Ireland, they descend from the Mother Lodge of England. All the stuff it didn't begin in Europe, but the modern era of Masonry, we can immediately tie that back to Europe. Then we have the Illuminati. The Illuminati order that started in Bavaria, which is Germany, if I'm not mistaken. This started in 1776, and it's not a coincidence that is when the revolution started and the Declaration of Independence was signed. It was made to infiltrate Freemasonry. The Masons said, "Oh, look, there's this group that is really into light, right? It's in the name, it's in the word, to illuminate, right? This group, the Illuminati, was made to dispel and to be to counteract the church, right? They said, we don't need God. We don't need to prove things with the Bible. We don't need God. We don't need God to. We don't need to explain things by saying that God did X, Y, and Z. We can say that science did X, Y, and Z, and they can. They were starting to try to disprove the church through science. That's what the Illuminati did, and they saw that Freemasons had such a huge grasp, and they were a far-reaching organization across multiple countries and different continents, and so they sought them as a group to infiltrate and influence the Masons in their own way, right? So then you have the modern Masonic orders, right? The Scottish Rite. So this is the beginning of the Scottish Rite Masons in Albert Pike in the 1880s, and he was the one that started the Renaissance of Freemasonry that took place in the 20th century, in the early 20th century. And that is the emblem of the Scottish Rite Masons, right? Okay, so we're getting into the nitty gritty, right? The interesting part of this lesson, right? We're going to talk about blood oaths, but before we do that, let's see what Yahushua had to say about swearing oaths, which is something that you must do to become a Mason. You got to swear on the Bible, you know, that you're going to withhold these secrets, or unless you die. Well, I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself. So Matthew 5:34, it says, "But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne." Okay, don't swear at all. "Nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black, but let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay, for whatever more than these comes of evil," right? So when you're swearing these oaths, know that it's coming from the evil one, right? Okay, so here's an oath that you take when you're first joining Freemasonry, when you're in the Blue Lodge, right? It says, "All this I must solemnly, sincerely promise and swear with a firm and steadfast resolution to perform the same without any mental reservation or secret evasion of mind whatever, binding myself under no less penalty than that of having my throat cut across, my tongue torn out by its roots, and my body buried and the rough sands of the sea at low water mark, where the tide ebbs and flows twice in 24 hours, should I ever knowingly violate the entered apprentice obligation. This is the entry oath that you give, right? And it talks about if you break this oath, then you're allowing yourself to be killed, right? So it's interesting. There's a lot of Christians that get into, a lot of Christian pastors and just Christians in general get into these Masonic orders, and you're basically saying that it's okay for a commandment to be broke and for somebody to commit murder against you. Okay, so it's really not, it's not making sense. It's not adding up. The two spiritual practices of biblical principles and biblical spiritualities is different from the blood oaths that you swore to the Masons, right? This is the blood oath of the Royal Arch Degree, and the symbol that we see here, it is a keystone, and it's a very, very important symbol to Freemasons, right? And it's the emblem of the Royal Arch Degree. So it says, "To all which I do most solemnly and sincerely promise and swear with a firm and steadfast resolution to keep and perform the same without any equivocation, mental reservations, or self evasion of mind in me whatever, binding myself under no less penalty than to have my skull smoke and my brains exposed to the scorching rays of the meridian sun, should I knowingly or willingly violate or transgress any part of this my solemn oath or obligation of a Royal Arch Mason, so help me God, and keep me steadfast in the due performances of the same." Okay, so this is the structure of Freemasonry. Whoever created this graphic, this piece of art, if you will, did a pretty good job of illustrating how these Masonic bodies intersect. It's hard to see. I implore you to find this image on your own time. But on the left-hand side of the staircase, we have the Scottish Rite Masons, right? And they're all walking, they're all trying to ascend to the same place. This is the highest degree of Freemasonry. We see that there's the Knights Templar, right? So after you become a 33rd degree Mason, the next step would be to become a Knights Templar. And on the right, we have the York Rite Masons, and they only have 7 or 9 degrees. So lucky, it's escaping me as to how many degrees they have. Now, under this staircase, we have other Masonic occultic orders, like the Shriners, right? And a lot of their symbolism comes from Islam. And a lot of our people are Shriners. I'm sure you've heard that word as well. It's hard to see, but we also have the Eastern Star, I believe. That is this woman here. Yeah, I can see a star right there. Grandma was an Eastern Star. It's another. It's a fraternal organization for women, but it's all the same. It all goes to the same place, right? The only thing is, if you want to become a York Rite Mason, you do have to just get off the podium. You can't just you can't be a Shriner. Excuse me. You can be a Shriner and be a Freemason, but there is a distinction between the two, which is why they're under the stair steps. So, and we see the all-seeing eye that a lot of us are familiar with. If we look at the back of a $1 bill, we'll see what is called the all-seeing eye, and that's a very important symbol to Freemasons. So it's also called the Eye of Horus. If you're familiar with Egyptian or Kemetic, dear Lord, Kemetic theology. That's what that is, right? On the right, there's another depiction of the Masonic structure, and what we see here, this is the compass right here, and the square, right? And this is the symbol for Masons, right? We see this on the back of somebody's car, and we know they're not going to get a ticket, right? So that's what that is, and it all goes to the very top. This all-seeing eye, right? Which they say is God's eye. Well, it's their God. I'll just put it that way. We'll discuss that some more later. This G, it stands for like basically regeneration, right? Or self-sustaining generation. The word is escaping me right now. But that's basically what the G is. Some people will say it stands for geometry or God, but no, it's actually a principle about generating yourself, and that's what Masons feel like they're doing, right? They're becoming a new person when they become a Freemason, and they believe that it's something their organization saying that it's going to continue to matriculate through time, right? Is it demonic? Absolutely, it's demonic. Let's go to the next slide. So Albert Pike, right? We spoke about him earlier. He was born December 29th, 1809 to April 12th, 1891. He popularized modern Freemasonry. Okay, so he published Morals and Dogma of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry in 1871. It's a seminal manuscript text for Freemasonry, right? He exclusively revised, wrote, and structured the rituals of the Scottish Rite. Rumored to be in the KKK. If he wasn't in the KKK, he was definitely a supporter of it and a sympathizer of it. He had a newspaper, I believe, where he wrote a lot of articles that showed that was basically an apologist for the Ku Klux Klan. Some people even say that he was instrumental in starting the Klan. Right? Those things might be buried in the sand and lost to time. We might not ever know. Okay, this is a popular quote from Morals and Dogma, right? If you are a Freemason, you are very familiar with Morals and Dogma. I don't care if you are a Prince Hall Mason. I don't care if you're a Scottish Rite Mason. I don't care if you're a Shriner. You know about Morals and Dogma, okay? And this is a direct quote from that. It says, "The apocalypse is to those who receive the 19th degree of the apotheosis of that sublime faith which appears to God alone and despises all the pomps and works of Lucifer." Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning, it is he who bears the light, and with its splendors intolerable blinds feeble, sensual, and selfish souls. Doubt it not, for traditions are full of divine revelation and inspiration. And inspiration is not of one age nor of one creed. Plato and Philo also were inspired. So that's a mouthful, right? And he's writing in a theological genre, if you will, for the late 19th century. So the translating that into 2026 English might be hard. But basically, he's saying that he doesn't know why people are attributing Lucifer with something negative, right? He's actually Lucifer. We know that from Isaiah, that we know that Lucifer is a word that's only used one time in the Bible, right? And it's referring to the fall of the king of Babylon. So he's saying, well, why are people attributing this Lucifer, right, to spiritual darkness? It's not that. Lucifer is actually a light. You know, he gives light to the world. And it's interesting that Satan is it translates to adversary, right? But Satan, he showed Jesus all the kingdoms of the world and said, that if you join me, these will be yours, right? We see that the entity Satan has a lot in common with what Albert Pike, they have a lot in common. What he considers Lucifer as this light bearer, it's very similar to Satan. And throughout occultic practices, they talk about Lucifer as he's the God that gives people knowledge, right? They basically repurposed that term from Isaiah, right, and really made it synonymous with Satan. Like they're the same thing, but they try to make it sound like Satan's a good entity, right? Because he gives light. What he said, the serpent said in the Garden of Eden that no, Eve, you can eat of this tree because you'll be like God. You'll be knowledgeable. You'll know of good and evil, right? That is their Lucifer. That is their Satan. That is their positive, or shining light, right? It gives them wisdom. It gives them knowledge. That's what they believe in, okay? So your Prince Hall Freemasons, they're getting down with Lucifer, with the Freemasonic version of Lucifer. I hope that's making sense, okay? All right, so Albert Pike and Lucifer. So we know that the devil is a liar. He's a trickster, right? So we see this a lot with the so-called white man, right? They try to mask something as good, but it's really evil. I was talking to my mom about that. It's like how they told us Jeffrey Epstein. No, he's just this financer. He's just working with these powerful billionaires, and he's presiding over their financial actions. But no, actually, these financial actions are funding his sex trafficking ring of children. Right. So they present something as positive, but then we later learn out it's negative. So Masons will try to say that, quote, he's not talking about Satan, right? But he's venerating Saturn. Like that makes it any better. So you're saying as a Mason, your top scholar, the guy that gave you your rituals, he has a high regard for Saturn, which is idolatry. So if you're a Christian pastor and your rites are being imbued with satanic and Luciferian terminology in symbology, what does that really say, right? So that doesn't make it any better. It's still idolatrous worship. It's not of God, right? And the occultists, they've linked Saturn to Satan, various occultic, or I really want to just call them Luciferian or satanic orders, right? They show a connection between the planet Saturn and the god Saturn, right? Because Saturn's a god in Roman or Greek mythology, and they link them and Satan. Like they'll say that Saturn is the god of money, right, or the god of banking, or that what else do they say? They say that Saturn, he gives, he's an inhibitor, right? An inhibitor is somebody that stops you from doing something. It's similar to the concept of Satan or the devil being an adversary, right? So people have linked Saturn and Satan. They've even linked Set, right, who killed Osiris with Saturn. So we see how there's a confluence of these occultic practices from various sides, from the Egyptian mystery side and from the other occultic practices, like I want to say the Rosicrucians. They probably have beliefs in Saturn, but please look that up on your own time. Okay, so Zazel, right, is the darker spirit or demon of Saturn. Okay, mentioned as a spirit in such works as the Key of Solomon. As it says on the 10th plate, the first pentacle of Mercury, it's serveth to invoke the spirits who are under the firmament. Zazel is described as being one of the presiding spirits, either the 45th or 49th. with AGL of Saturn and has been described as a great angel invoking Solomonic magic, who is effective in love conjurations. That's a lesson for another day. Why these Masons have this obsession with love, which is really just orgies or incest and various forms of fornication. They have a very prevalent interest in this sort of thing, right? That's a lesson for another day. You know, if you are involved in Freemasonry, you are subjecting yourself to a spirit of fornicacious, if that is a word, a spirit of fornication, right? We'll have to talk about that in another class. Okay, man. I'm sorry, man. I'm going long. If the brothers need to stop me, you know, just please let me know. Okay, so the builders. This is a seminal text. I believe it's a required text for you to progress through Freemasonry. I believe you need to read books like The Builders and Morals and Dogma. Either way, just Google what is a important text for Freemasons. I guarantee The Builders is gonna come up, right? And I want to say that you have to read this, or you will be, or I think you'll be tested on it to progress to the next degree of Freemasonry, right? This is seminal Masonic literature, regardless of order. The Prince Hall Masons are familiar with it. The Eastern Stars are familiar with it. It talks about an occultist named Arthur Edward Waite, right? And it calls him the greatest esoteric teacher. What does the word esoteric mean? Okay, it's the word esoteric. It means it's designed for or understood by the specially initiated one. And you know, I find that interesting that these occultic organizations, you have to be initiated. You have to get an invite, right? Then you have to go through this whole secret process and ritual to be initiated, right? And then you can be given certain knowledge. What we do in Jeshurun Space City or as Hebrew Israelites, we just open the Bible. There's nothing secret about it, right? And we have the most knowledge and the most wisdom. You know, nothing is hidden that we do. But in these societies, things have to be hidden. That should tell you something. So this is a page from The Builders, and the highlight section, it says, and the result is a series of, this is referring to Arthur Edward Waite's work. It says, and the result is a series of volumes, noble in form, united in aim, unique in wealth, of revealing beauty and of unequal worth. High praise for this esoteric scholar. Okay, another part of the another page from The Builder says, beginning as far back as 1886, Waite issued his study of the mysteries of magic, a digest of the writings of Eliphas Levi, to whom Albert Pike was more indebted than he let us know. I really don't even I really don't even want to talk about this kind of stuff because it's so dark, bro. Like, it's so dark. Like Eliphas Levi, we're going to talk about that, right? And we're going to talk more about Eliphas Levi and his work right here. So Arthur Edward Waite, right? Was born in 1857, died in 1942. So his impact on Freemasonry is this. He shifted Masonry to focus toward mystical, esoteric, and spiritual interpretations rather than just social or historical aspects, right? It's not just about fraternity and brotherhood. It's about the spiritual side. It's about Baphomet and Saturn and Set and things like that. So the tarot cards, right? That you see, the girls that are into spirituality and stuff like that, they're into this tarot cards. I guess, the card of the day is the fool or whatever it is, right? He was the one with other esoteric scholars. They created the modern version, the popular version of tarot cards, right? And I have this written down. Well, he was a prominent. Okay, yeah, he was a prominent Mason, right? Very, very influential Mason. He was one of the influential individuals who gave Masons their spiritual basis, right? So he was a Mason. He was a Rosicrucian. He was also the Order of the Golden Dawn. Look that up on your own time, please. Look up all these occultic organizations that we're talking about and see what they get. This is, I can't even say this is scratching the surface of what they believe. There is a dearth of information, of text that would probably explain why people like Jeffrey Epstein believe that you need to sacrifice children and various wicked things like that. So he wrote the book. The Book of Ceremonial Magic, and I think we have a quote from that here. Yes. So just skimming through this, it says the word magnetism expresses the action and not the nature of the great universal agent, which serves as a mediator between thought and life. This agent is the infinite light, or seeing that the light itself only phenomenal. It is rather the light bearer, the great king Lucifer of nature, the mediator between matter and spirit, the first creature of God. Well, that's incorrect, because we know that Yahweh Shai was the firstborn of all creation and presided over the creation of the world. Okay, but they say it's Lucifer. They say that Lucifer was God's first creation. We know that Lucifer, or Satan, is a high-ranking angel, but don't give him the honor that needs to be bestowed upon the actual king of the world, right? Okay, but termed the devil by imposters and the ignorant, right? They don't like you saying that Satan is a bad guy, that he's the devil, right? They believe that Satan is a light bearer, okay? There's where I'm saying that. Not evil, intellectual. This is the intellectual. Lucifer is the spirit of intelligence, right? But he said Eve, eat the apple. Satan said this, right? But they're calling him Lucifer because Lucifer means light bearer. Okay, just sit and try to digest that. Okay, they said he's the spirit of intelligence and love. That's why they have these orgies and things like that, because they're so loving. And God, the real God, wouldn't stop you from fornicating or having an orgy or having incest or abusing a child, right? The Satan or Lucifer, he's cool with that though. Satan, he doesn't restrict you. We don't like this God that restricts us and tells us what we can and what we can't do. This is the God of intelligence. He's the God of enlightenment. He's the God that gives us light. Oh, we know it's okay that we can do X, Y, and Z, right? But love more is an illustration to believe that God permits this evil intelligence to deceive and destroy his feeble creatures, to make God more wicked than the devil. By depriving the devil of the possibility of love and repentance, God forces him to do evil. Please just take your time and read this. It's really calling God the bad guy and saying that he's not giving Satan or the devil repentance, and which is causing him to do evil, right? This is what they believe. So more on Waite. He wrote the Book of Black Magic in Pax, published in 1898. Okay, so in this book, right, this prominent Masonic scholar, he shows you a spell to conjure Satan. Okay, this is what you're tying yourself to, right? Because even when you take an oath to attain a certain degree, or it's actually the I want to say it's your first initiation. They take this rope off you that they've been dragging you around with in a clockwise motion around the temple, like you're the sun, right? Because they're all about symbology, and they're really a sun cult, right? According to certain anti-Masonic authors, right? They take this rope off and they say, the person who's presiding over the ritual, he says, now remove the rope from X individual's neck, because he is now bound to a spiritual system that is more connected. He's basically saying that this rope, it's not as strong as the bond that we have with one another, right? Let me try to wrap this up, guys. We can talk more about this at another time. I apologize for taking so long. So universal magnetism, it's very similar to this one world, new world order language, right? I'm not going to read this. This is from the Book of Black Magic by Edward Waite, who in the Builders, who is a required, I believe it's a required text, and it venerates and it commemorates or honors Waite, right? He has a book about that involves and teaches you how to conjure the devil. Okay, a life is Levi. If I can just get 5 minutes, guys, I'll wrap up. Life is Levi. He's the person who made the Baphomet popular, right? He was another. He said profoundly impacted Freemasonry by fueling the 19th century occult revival, right? Steering high-grade masonry towards Kabbalic, Hermetic, and ceremonial magic. Okay, and he was a major influence on Pike. Aleister Crowley, somebody who needs no introduction. I'm sure you've heard of this individual before. He's very prominent in the rock and roll days in the 70s and 80s. You know, they looked up to him because I guess he was just wicked, and that's what the people that were into rock, they were into devil, the satanic imagery and things like that. So they gravitated to people like Pike. He was considered one of the most wicked men at the time. He was into bestiality and things like that. And if you look at his picture, you'll see that there's a symbol of the Baphomet, right? He has the signet of the Baphomet, right, on his picture. And this is him in his Masonic regalia. This is from his book, Magic and Theory and Practice. Skipping to the last sentence, it says, second to last sentence is, for the high spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains for the high spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the greatest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. He's telling you what you need to do to successfully sacrifice to the devil, right? And you guys, I think we'll share the slides, and y'all can read this on your own time. So as I just mentioned, we had the symbol of the Baphomet. Does that look similar to what C. Fred Kleinknecht had when, this is the same guy that had a close relationship with the Prince Hall Masons? It's interesting that the signet for the Baphomet is also the same emblem that is on this high-ranking Mason's hat. Manly P. Hall, another profound Masonic scholar, he wrote The Secret Teaching of All Ages in 1828. It's 33rd degree Mason. This is another text that is required to read to become a Mason. It's The Teaching of All Ages. Another book that teaches you how to conjure the devil. I'm not going to read that. It talks about, I will bring unto him a human soul to do with what as it may please him, and in return, Lucifer promises to bestow upon me the treasures of the earth and fulfill me every desire for the length of my natural life. This is I want to say required text, and it's talking about conjuring demons, right? You can go to the Scottish Rite website and look at their, you can go to their library, right? This is the official ScottishRite.org website. You can see they have some of Aleister Crowley's work, including rituals and sex magic. So I don't know why your Christian Masonic pastor is tied to an organization that is promoting a book called Rituals and Sex Magic. Okay, the Book of Black Magic that Arthur Waite illustrates how to conjure Satan it's shown in the library as well. The Christ of Freemasonry. So Hiram Abiff was a very minor. Hiram is a very minor character in Kings and Chronicles, right? So Solomon asked for Hiram to come and help build the temple. He was one of the head craftsmen there, and we have the keystone, right, or the cornerstone in Freemasonry. This is a Masonic symbol. There's a quote from the Tennessee Monitor in 1945 where it says that basically the Hindus, they have Krishna and Vishnu, Jews have Moses, the Christians have Christ, and the Masons, we have Hiram. So Hiram is their Christ, basically. Okay, we're wrapping up. So these occultic practices are not what they seem. Most people do not know this, but when I was into Kemet and stuff like that, I was familiar with these kind of images. But it's what it is. It's concealed phallic worship, and if you know what a phallus is, it's another word for penis, right? So what they really believe in, their mystery, the main mystery that they cannot understand, is how the female reproductive organ can be almost eternal, right? And I'm trying not to get too graphic here, but please try to see what I'm saying. But the male organ, once it releases sperm, it dies. You know, they can't figure out why is it the female, her organ can keep going, but the male, it dies. They you know, they're all about love and orgies and stuff like that. So I'm sure that's something that was perplexing to them, right? Isis and Osiris, their story, it has to deal with Isis looking for the phallus of Osiris, so that becomes a venerated image. Also, you see that the Masons, they wear these aprons, and we know that the God's glory was behind a veil, right? Their glory is behind their apron, right? That's what that is representing. More of Hiram Abiff. It says that it talks about that there was a stone that was inspected and the overseers rejected it. Right. So this is Masonic literature, right? This is from their manuscripts, and it's basically trying to insinuate that Hiram Abiff was the rejected cornerstone. We know that Christ is the head cornerstone, though, right? The stone which the builder refused is to become the head of the cornerstone, right? That's Psalms 118 and 22. So they're basically taking Yahushai's glory and they're giving it to Hiram, who is a very minor character in the Bible. See that the Eastern Star, their emblem is identical to the Church of Satan's emblem, right? It's a pentagram. Okay. The Masons had impacts on the American institutions. 1/3 of the signers of the Constitution were Masons. 9 to 13 of the 56 signers were signers of the Declaration of Independence. This is the guy that designed the Statue of Liberty, right? He was a high-ranking Mason, and we see he's doing the pose for the Master of the Second Veil. More symbolism for the Statue of Liberty, right? There's this light, right? This light that they're obsessed with. You know, we see this in the Columbia pictures. This is a picture of a prostitute, right, in the French Revolution that was put on the what is it called? The head of the church in Notre Dame, right? They were done. They didn't like the Catholic Church. They didn't like the French church system. So the Freemasons were a part of the French Revolution and sacking the church. And instead of it being a holy place, they made it decadent and put a prostitute with a torch in her hand on the altar. And that is what the Statue of Liberty is based on, right? She's the goddess of reason, right? She's a part of the cult of reason. We know that the Statue of Liberty, I believe it's been brought out that there's a similarity in the language in Revelation 17:1. Says, and there came one of the 7 angels, which had 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither, I will show unto you the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, right? We know that that the Statue of Liberty is on an island, on Ellis Island. Okay, the Great Seal. It has various satanic imagery, like the 13 steps represent the 13 steps of Satan worship. We see that the eagle has 32 feathers on this side and 33 feathers on one side, representing the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Is the reverse of the seal. It is has the all-seeing eye, right? Yeah. Okay. So, so this reads in Latin, Anut septis novus ordo selecorum. It means this begins the New World Order, right? And this happened in 1776. There was no Articles of Confederation. The war had not even been fought at this point, and they're declaring a New World Order when the United States was not even a country at the time, right? This is the 13 steps that you see here, right? This is a diagram showing the various Masonic bodies that you can matriculate to, and your goal is to get to the great architect of the universe, which is Lucifer, right? I'm just gonna, yeah. So in various occultic practices, the symbol of the all-seeing eye, it's shown as a destructive force in the myth of destruction of mankind, related in the Book of the Heavenly Cow for the New Kingdom. It talks about how this all-seeing eye was rebelling against humans and killing humans, right? One of the last things you say when you are becoming a Master Mason, I believe, is it says that so-and-so, for example, here it said, Mr. Peter Gabe, who had long been in darkness and now seeks to become brought to light and receive part of the right and benefits of this worshipful lodge, erected to God and dedicated to the Holy St. John, as all brothers and fellows have come before. So they're saying, imagine your pastors reciting this and saying that he's long been in darkness and now he's being brought to the light, but we know that Yahweh is the light, and then God bestows the light upon us. I'm wrapping up here. This is my last slide. It says, and there shall be no night there, and they need no candle, neither light of the sun, for the Lord God giveth them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. That's Revelations 22:5. John, and then I have John 8:12 here in the KJV. It says, then spake Jesus again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. It's Yahweh is the light, not Lucifer. And that will conclude my lesson for today. Thank you.
Khan, all praises. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Khan, all praises, man. Hey, powerful, bro. I ain't know half of that stuff, man. Yeah. I ain't know half of that. Masonry is something that I know a couple brothers myself personally that have fallen into that mess, man. And like you said, a lot of our people kind of springboard into Masonry after they go into these D9s, right? So if you guys didn't catch our lesson, me and the brother Oz Gadar, we did a class over the Divine Nines of the Greek fraternity and sorority. So if you guys haven't checked that out, go look at it, man. Powerful stuff. It's on the channel. We actually might run that lesson back now that we have new audience and we're our own camp now, especially after this lesson right here, because like the brother brought out, our people, they get into these Greek fraternities and sororities, and a lot of the stuff that they do in those fraternities, it links back to Masonry. It links back to Masonry, and as the brother pointed out, man, all of that links back to the worship of Nimrod. It goes back to the worship of Nimrod. It's all idolatry, man. And these are the organizations that our people fall victim to, and they don't even know. So, man, all praise to the Most High putting it on this brother's spirit to go into that, because our people need to know, man. Our people need to know what they're getting themselves into. Yeah, exactly, Mike. Mighty powerful lesson. So, like we talked about last week, every Friday, we're gonna have these lessons coming at you, our virtual camps, if you will, where we have just bringing out different things, right? Last week, the brother Yaquab, he brought out some powerful information. Check out that video if you haven't. This week was on Masonry. Next week, we will be going into the Sabbath, the true Sabbath, and the new moon, the truth about the new moon, going into our calendar. For those of you guys who have been keeping up with us, our calendar is not it's not like everybody else's. And we're going to get into that next week, next Wednesday, on the actual new year, the start of the lunar year. We're going to go into the lunar calendar. We're going to go into how the lunar calendar is supposed to be kept, both biblically and scientifically. We're going to go into how the lunar synoptic periods bring about the quote unquote transition days. We are going to prove transitional days in the Bible, not only in the Bible, but also in history, also through archaeology, and also through science, i.e. observing the natural order of the celestial bodies such as the moon, the sun, as well as the earth. So that's going to be a major lesson. Y'all tune in. We're going to have the brother Yadi from the Masada join us on that class as well. Tap in, man. Tap in. If you got any questions, put them in the chat on that day, because it's going to be kind of a deep lesson. Going to be some new information is going to be brought out, some things that that might be a little bit confusing at first. So y'all just tap in, put your questions in the chat, hit us in the email, and if things make sense, get with us. So with that, man, I want to give all glory, honor, and praise to the Most High God, Yahweh, and we say Shalom.
Yeah, that's perfect right there. Yep, yeah, hey, and I'm still a big dog. Lift up your leg. Catch a breeze, part 2, man. Shout out Ariella. Shout out to God. Listen, yeah. I told niggas I wanted to catch a breeze, then I finally got it. Yaquab going outside, I highly doubt it. Mama gave me plenty love, now I gotta try to find a way to live without it. Child support eating up my pockets. It was cool, but the heat returned. I knew it, that's from experience. You live and you learn. Tunnel vision, it means nothing when your vision get blurred. You run into a wall, that's when your obstacles reoccur. When you on a mission, and I'm on a mission to put the city on my back, bro, I finally did it. Hella niggas, they doubted me, Zachariah was with it. And we was too deep, pushing the gospel out in the trenches. That's when niggas joined up to simmer it, calm down. Caught a breeze for a minute, the spirit's involved now. Say what? Let it breathe. Say what? Catch your breath. Okay. We bought it out on them corners till it was nothing left. 9 years in the truth, striving to do my best. Facts. Feet hurting from my Timbs, nigga. Facts. And I never been a bench warmer, so when coach put me in the game, I had the ball above the rim, nigga. Precepts, remember those, run a pick and roll. You bring it out, I break it down, that's what I was told. And never be a lazy servant is what I was told. Burying talents in the ground, my nigga, hell no. I let my light shine, kicking all of these nice rhymes. Ox salt, bacon, this flavor over your mind. And then I finally caught a breeze. Listen, I had to parasail off it and told my Ock I'ma ride with him till the wheels fall off it. Facts. So if they touch you, then it's nothing nice. That's the love of Christ. There's no greater love than one laying down his life. Back deeper than water, niggas could drown thrice. Pull you out with this living water, bring you back to life. I'm trying to catch me a breeze, I thought I told ya. Everybody catching a breeze, nigga, I'm Oprah. Maneuver through the city where it's slimier than okra. I'm hard body, a heat and it's sweeter than Fruitopia. Yeah, says he be on your mind, you gotta tighten up. We all Israelites, but niggas, they ain't nice as us. Space City Records, well respected. Boots on the ground, we pushing preaching the gospel till it's accepted in the common household. Wicked ways we live without those. Knocking my enemies out cold. And I know the ops mad cause the Lord preparing the table. Everybody eats as Jaquab carry the label. I never wanted to be a nigga who did it on his own, but fuck it, I'm grown now and perfectly able. And that shit in my bloodline, I seen it enough times, no need